The Democratic Congressman Jack Murtha, arguably the leading voice in the anti-war movement now. His calls for troop withdrawal have drawn fierce attacks from the vice president and the president, and certainly from his re-election opponent. Mr. Murtha, thank you for joining us, Congressman. Do you like the heat you're getting?
Well, Chris, I try not to be distracted from the difference in policy. I disagree with the open-ended policy that this administration is adhering to. And just because he says that it's cut and run, just because he says that if we withdraw, it'll be a disaster, doesn't necessarily mean it's true. For instance, he also said there are weapons of mass destruction. He also said there's an al-Qaeda connection. We also sent troops, inadequate troops in to do the transition to peace. So they've made tremendous mistakes, and yet they keep attacking the person that's trying to come up with a policy difference. I don't agree with their policy at all. I think they're making mistakes. For instance, when Ambassador Bremer turned this government over to the interim government, there were 16 incidents a day. That increased to 19 when Saddam Hussein was captured. Then it went to 45, then 75. Now imagine this. There's over 100 incidents a day, the most lethal attacks we've ever had, more Iraqis killed during the whole 3.5 years we've been there. And in addition to that, none of the things that they predicted were going to happen. So I don't necessarily believe what they predict is going to happen. And then you have the intensity of the American public. The American public no longer supports the $8 billion that we're having to spend in this war throughout Iraq.
Are you saying, Congressman, that if we leave Iraq while we're getting 100 IED kills a day, we're getting 100 people killed a day over there, 3,000 this month, 17,000 this year, and we leave under fire, that the enemies out there aren't going to say, we drove them out of Iraq? How can you say that's not going to be their reaction?
Let me tell you, he mentioned Beirut. I was in Beirut the day after the bombing, the Marines were bombed. I realized Hezbollah was responsible for that. We'd like to get rid of that terrorist organization. President Reagan, now here's one of our strongest presidents, recognized we couldn't solve that problem, so he redeployed his troops. That's what I'm saying. We cannot win this militarily, and our troops are caught in a civil war. We have no accountability. We're caught in a quagmire, and we get political rhetoric rather than solutions to the problem.
Let me show you, Congressman, what the president and vice president are saying about you. I'm sure you've heard this and other opponents of the Iraq war. Here they are.
We follow Congressman Murtha's advice and withdraw from Iraq the same way we withdrew from Beirut in 1983 or Mogadishu in 1993. We will simply validate the al-Qaeda strategy and invite more terrorist attacks in the future.
If we cut and run, if we don't complete the mission, what would that say to those brave men and women who have volunteered to wear the uniform of the United States of America?
Can you respond to that, Congressman, to those charges? That your cut-and-run strategy, as they call it, will encourage the enemy?
Yeah, let me tell you, Chris. I served in the Marine Corps, 3 of my brothers did. My dad and 3 of his brothers were in World War II. One of them was shot down. One of my uncles was shot down in World War II. So we're a patriotic family. We want to support a president. But this president is going in the wrong direction. He gives political rhetoric instead of solution. And he holds nobody accountable. The first step in solving this problem is hold somebody accountable. The Secretary of Defense has to go. He sent inadequate forces in. I'm the guy that discovered the 44,000 troops without body armor. I'm the guy that discovered they didn't have up-armored Humvees. I discovered they didn't have the jammers that they need in order to stop the IEDs. So I do my job every day. I support the military 100%, but I'm not in favor of open-ended policy that's not working. We need to change direction. President Reagan recognized that in Beirut. President Clinton recognized that in Somalia. There's times when you either get out now and you recognize that, or you continue on and just have more people killed. In the end, you're forced out anyway.
Here's what Navy Captain Larry Bailey recently said about his group's plans for your campaign, Congressman. Quote, "I will do my best to swift boat John Murtha." What do you make of that?
Well, again, I try not to be distracted from my mission. My mission is to change the direction of this country. I've been all over the country. I get standing ovations. I see the intensity. People stop me in the airports. They stop me in the Walmarts. They stop me in the Home Depots, and they say to me, keep talking. We want somebody to respond. We want somebody held responsible and accountable in this administration. And that's what's not happening. We get political rhetoric instead of accountability. We get political solutions rather than real solutions to the problem. I'm offering a real solution, and that solution is a responsible redeployment of our troops, and they're offering open-ended. And we've got 130,000 troops there, Chris, 130,000 troops, and it's gotten worse. It gets worse every day. More incidents every day, more Americans being killed.
Okay.
And here's one other thing. We applaud the State Department for trying to work a ceasefire out in Lebanon, where you got Israelis fighting Lebanese, and yet you criticize a guy who wants to stop a war in Iraq, but where Americans are being killed.
Do you want to modify any of the things you said on May 17th about the Haditha event, where you talked about it's much worse than reported in Time magazine, those 24 Iraqis killed, with a lot of American soldiers now being investigated for that situation there?
Here's the problem with an incident like this. When an incident like this happens, it not only hurts the military and their mission, it hurts this country. And that's the reason I spoke out about it. One, just a few people in the military hurt the rest of the military when they're involved in an incident like this.
So you stand by your statement?
I stand by my statement.
Thank you very much, Congressman Jack Murtha of Pennsylvania. Up next, Jack Murtha's Republican opponent, Diana Ire. And later, 5 years after 9/11, President Bush admits we're not safe yet. Is he right? The co-chairs of the 9/11 Commission will be here. Tom Kean, the former governor of New Jersey, and Lee Hamilton, the former congressman from Indiana. You're watching Hardball.